Pop in, say hi. If you've never come into one of my lives before, I am Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And when I came in, I went, oh my goodness, I look like Bam Bam today. I look like Bam Bam today. But it's all good. I had the most amazing relaxing couple of days. I actually got out of the house yesterday and went for a walk. It was absolutely amazing. Tomorrow, I'm going to make a point of going for a bike ride. It doesn't have to be a big one because on Tuesday, I'm going to go for a nice long walk on Tuesday. But I think tomorrow it's going to be a really nice day tomorrow. And I can't just say just because it's a nice day that I have to go out for these long walks and these big bike rides because we're going into, I don't know if we're going into spring. I think we're going to go right into summer. I think spring kind of bypassed Manitoba this year. Hello, Owen. How was your spring so far this year? Has it been like spring? I tell ya, here in Manitoba, it has been so off and on. Just when I think that spring is here, it starts snowing. It actually snowed this week here in Winnipeg. I sat here in the morning, there was snow on the ground, and then the it melted, and then in the afternoon it started melting or snowing again. It's just kind of different. It's unique. And, I expect change. I really do. But, right, change coming into my life, not in us all struggling in the same change, right? I don't know. Tammy! Hello, Tammy. Happy you made it in tonight. Happy you made it in tonight. Are you home for a little bit or are you still helping out? Tammy's been away for the past week or so. She was helping a friend out. So usually she's my head moderator over on my other live show that I do, my podcast, What's My Good Cheer. And yeah, she's been away all week. We managed this week. We really did. And some good topics to boot because, it was really interesting because it gave me an idea for some content, or if not some content, maybe a book. And it came from Melvin. I don't know, Tammy, if you went back in and watched my live show the other day where Melvin had popped in. Oh, I think you did mention Melvin. But we were talking about getting something for nothing. And I went right into Mother Nature because Mother Nature just gives, gives, gives. And it doesn't take away. You know what I mean? It doesn't take from us. And we just keep taking from it. And we just use nature as a resource, right? As something that we can, I don't know, deplete, right? Deplete and take advantage of, and not really take into consideration that everything that nature gives to us. And I went, oh my goodness, that is a topic of discussion. I might make a whole night because it was so amazing. He popped in and he was talking about getting some free windshield wipers with the warranty on his truck. And yeah, it was neat. But I kind of mentioned, yeah, it's kind of amazing to feeling to get something for nothing. And then right away I was thinking about Mother Nature and how Mother Nature just gives, right? We use it to build our houses, our outdoor furniture, for our furnaces, right? To heat our houses, to build boats, right? Beautiful furniture on the inside of the house. Like we use wood for so much. We use it for making paper. We use wood for making paper. Wood actually provides us with oxygen. Like we can't go without oxygen, can we? Like it's just absolutely amazing the gifts that Mother Nature gives to us. The rivers, the oceans, the fish, hydroelectricity. Like, how amazing is it for us to have hydroelectricity, right? And to have water for watering our gardens. Like, so much nature gives to us. Wind turbines. Oh my goodness, we could just go on forever and ever and ever, can't we? With the resources and with the amazing gifts that nature gives to us. And yet we just kind of utilize it, right? Sometimes not even, most of the time, not even giving it any consideration, to the very least say thank you. So it gave me some food for thought, and that I don't know what I will do with that idea, but I think it's important that maybe I should do something with that idea. I watched your video during the week on my own. Oh my goodness, you still came in and watched my lives and my podcasts? Tammy, that's so nice of you. I don't know where you find the time to do all of that, but I appreciate that. Hello, Owen. Owen, you may have heard more about this on the East Coast. I saw an item on Facebook that things go for sinking. The SS United States are go for sinking. Oh, the ships. Andrew stays quite on top of the naval ships and the cruise ships. I've actually, Andrew, you might find this interesting. There's a content creator. I used to watch him all the time. I haven't been watching him lately, but I thought I might go in because he started a new series. He bought an um, abandoned yacht. And guess whose yacht it was? It was sitting out in a boatyard, I think, totally abandoned. Huge, huge boat. It's like a cruise ship, it's so big. But this boat belonged to Frank Sinatra. And this content creator that I follow, his channel's called The Pethricks. If you want to check it out, he was renovating a convent, and he bought Frank Sinatra's old abandoned yacht, and he's renovating it. He actually posted a video today where he's replacing the ship's roof. So I don't know what condition that it is. The boat. I haven't watched any of the series of the Pethricks, but when I saw that he had bought Frank Sinatra's old yacht, I went, oh my goodness, an abandoned yacht too. The outside of it looked all rusted and what do you call that? Decrepit. It was just in really rough shape from the thumbnail, but I didn't go in. I'm just going to write it here. And then tonight, I'm going to go watch the first two episodes because he only's done two episodes, I think, of that playlist. And I really enjoy when content creators find different ideas to add to their channel, right? It still stays in the realm that he made himself popular in renovation, in restoration, because that convent that they're working on, like the main house, they turned into their living residence, and absolutely beautiful, buying antique furniture and trying to keep it not necessarily original, but finding all the original stuff that's underneath all the renovations. This gentleman actually started a company also, and he is doing old design wallpaper, and he's selling it as part of his branding on his YouTube channel. And I thought that's so creative. And these wallpapers, like he's finding little pieces of the wallpaper underneath the walls and stuff that he's renovating, and he has them printed into sheets, and then he makes rolls with these prints that he makes. And oh my goodness, some of those wallpapers absolutely just absolutely just beautiful. But yeah, so they're going to sink a ship. Are they going to sink the ship somewheres where it could be part of the reef? I know they've been doing that a lot lately. um Let me just come into here what Andrew's comment was. Where was that? Yeah, Andrew. um Oh, it's still acting like spring, right? It's still acting like spring. Today was a little bit cooler. I didn't go out today, but I did go out yesterday. Tomorrow I'm going to go for a bike ride. Like I said, I might just go for a cup of coffee or short ride on my bike. Um, and then Tuesday I have to go out, but depending, you guys, this is kind of crazy, but my sister Tracy has gotten herself back into the hospital. I got a phone call this afternoon, and she fell in the bathroom a couple of weeks ago, but her toes and her legs have all discolored and swelled up and stuff. So she thought that she had gotten some kind of infection. So they decided to go to the hospital. And when they did X-rays on her leg, it turns out that she is fractured and broken bones, numerous bones in her feet. So yeah, so we were waiting to hear whether or not. So if my phone rings, you guys, I will have to take that phone call. So it might be a shorter live tonight, because it is a priority that I right, keep up with what's going on with my sister Tracy. But yeah, she's had such a rough time of it, in and out of hospitals now for years now. It's been for years. And she's a tough bird. We were talking about it today, in my family, we were kind of groomed to be survivors. We were groomed to be tough and non-complaining and self-reliant and non-emotional. That was kind of hard for me. I've always been emotional. I've always been super sensitive, but it was even tried to be pounded into me to be kind of, well, I am independent. I am self-reliant to some extent. But I have codependency issues. That's why I'm laughing at that, right? But my sister Tracy, she is tough, and she plays like, I got to get done what I got to get done. I never give up, and none of us girls, we give up. There's 4 girls in my family. None of us gives up. We always keep going. We just hack through things. We adapt and we conquer, and we ride those waves of little catastrophes and the big catastrophes, and we try to be uh, isolated in that, not to put our problems on other people. And I said today, I didn't know she was sitting next. I was talking to her friend who actually took her to the hospital. And I thought that, Tracy was waiting for something or in a room or something. But it turned out she was sitting right next to her, listening to our conversation. But, I said, Tracy just needs to have a really, really good cry, because I doubt very much my sister Tracy even cries in privacy, right? I don't think any of my sisters cry. And for myself, I used to be such a big tearjerker. I used to just cry. Well, I'm not going to say I don't cry. I do get teary-eyed in some of those sad stories and those sad things that come across my path that I do feel in to other people's emotions, and whether they're good emotions or bad emotions, I cry equally, right? But to have a good bawl my eyes out for the state I'm in, or those situations I get myself into, or those noisy me's, I haven't done that in years, right? The closest I come to really having a really sad time of it was when my cat Meatball passed away, and that was a pretty rough one for me because we stuck it out together for a lot of those most difficult years. I'm not going to say they were most difficult years of my life. I think those childhood years were just kind of pretty up there when it comes to toughness and difficulty. But, it's pretty scary when you don't you know, how you're going to put a roof over your head, where your next meal is coming from, or whether or not you're going to come home and the doors are locked on you, right? And you're going to have to figure out a way to get your cat out of the humane society like it was, and not having any help, not even having any support in that. And I was in a new job, so I had to show myself well, right, in order to secure my position in that job. But when it comes to having a good cry, it is really good for the system. It clears all that junk that we hold inside of ourselves because, right, we feel we have to. And it just becomes putrid. It becomes something that we're choking on. It's something that we're not able to release, and it hangs over our lives like a cloud, right? And I did say that to my sister's friend, to say, Tracy really does need to have a good cry, because a good cry will make you so much better, because it takes a lot of that stuff we've been holding in, and it's so compacted. It seems small, but it's like when you open up one of those bags that you suck all the air out of, and it goes really, really skinny, and then it just expands, just like this, right? Because we compact everything really, really down, and sometimes we don't think how heavy things are, how much things have really weighted ourselves down. And I'm a true believer in crying. And I'm grateful that in the small things that come across my path, that I am able to be sympathetic, and to allow myself to shed a tear. I keep my Kleenex. I keep my Kleenex right here. And it makes me feel better. It reminds me that I'm human, and it also reminds me to remind myself that it's okay, that we're supposed to stay soft. And it's okay because everybody has crappy days. Like everybody has crappy days. But oh my goodness, my sister Tracy has been having some really, really tough ones. And we're talking tough years. And just when she thinks she's coming to the surface for a breath of air, that's pretty much all she gets, is a breath of air. And then she goes right down into the dive again. right? And, I have to appreciate that maybe I have to put myself in that same category that she puts herself in, and not just give all that compassion to her, which I want to and I will, but also to reflect back on my life, right? To remind myself that it's okay, Cindy. You're having tough situations too, and you're doing exactly the same thing she's doing, right? But the thing is, I understand, and I understand myself. I understand the story that I'm living out and playing out, and I understand that it doesn't stay dark forever, that eventually the sun does come out. And also, it's in my attitude, it's in my optimism, and because I'm practicing those skills, I've managed to brush things off. Now, I'm not perfect, so I'm just going to tell you, so silly of me today. I got up today and I thought, well, we're going to get on top of things a little bit, right? I was sitting in and I was getting some great revelations and a lot of amazing thinking about my life and about that little bit of movement that I want to make. I made myself a beautiful breakfast, right? And I took my time doing it, and it was absolutely delicious. But I turned everything off when it was all ready, like my toast and my hash brown. Well, they weren't hash browns, they were like potato pancakes with green onions and stuff. They were delicious still. But I made my entire breakfast. But before that, I had put all my wash into the washing machine, right? So I turned the stove off, made sure my toast was buttered, breakfast was ready to go. And I thought, you know what? My clothes are gonna be finished washing, so I'm gonna go downstairs and I'm gonna put my clothes in the dryer. So by the time my breakfast is over, I can go down and grab all my clothes. So I have a rope, and I keep my house keys and my bike keys and lock keys and stuff on this rope that I keep around my neck so I don't lose them, right? And I grabbed it. I have a hook by the door. I grabbed my keys and I went downstairs and I went to my washing machine and I opened up the door of the washing machine, and all these clothes fell on the floor. And a woman who was in the laundry room, she goes, "Those are mine." And I went, and I looked and I went, "These aren't my clothes, but this is my washing machine." She goes, "Oh, I put all your clothes in the dryer." And she waited for that specific washing machine and grabbed all my clothes out. She's grabbed all my clothes out. There was a situation in this, grabbed all my clothes out, and she put them in the dryer. I says, "Please, please, please don't touch other people's clothes. Like, somebody is really, really going to get angry with you for doing that." And especially, I was down here as soon as that machine like turned off, like she had just pushed the button on the dryer and just started, right? So she was specifically waiting for my washroom. I said, "Please don't touch other people's clothes," right? And uh and uh and so I bent down and I grabbed all her clothes that had fallen out of the washing machine, because she was stuffing the washer with clothes, right? And I stuffed them all into the washer. She put a couple of more pieces in the washing machine, and she put her soap in and she started the machine. And I checked my other washing machine. It was ready to go into the dryer, right? I just waited for like 1 minute and it was off, and I put it in the dryer. And then I was turned around to go back upstairs. She just left the building, or left the laundry room, right? And I didn't want to get on the same elevator with her. So I just kind of stood there a minute, right? Until she got on her elevator. And then I went to go and push the elevator for myself. And I noticed that my keys were gone. And I went, oh, I left them on the dryer. So I went back into the laundry room. I didn't leave them sitting in the on top of the dryer. I dropped them on the floor and scooped up because they were in my hand. I scooped up all those clothes and I put them in the washing machine and I put my keys in the washing machine. And she turned the washing machine on, and I had to stand in that laundry room for like 40 minutes with my breakfast sitting up on the counter. And I didn't want to, like, just right, the cleaning lady was in the building. She would have unlocked, she got a master key, she could have let me into my apartment. But the thing is, I would have had to go back down to the laundry room and just timed it perfectly because she wasn't washing clothes for herself. She has a little business going on because we get free laundry in our building. We don't pay for our laundry. So people bring her clothes and she washes the clothes for them, and then she makes a little money on the side from doing it. So I didn't want my clothes to go off who knows where, my keys to go off to who knows where. So I just had to stand there for 40 minutes and I kept looking because I wasn't too sure. It was the only thing that I could think of. Nobody else was in the laundry room. So it was the only thing I could think of was that I had put my keys, my rope keys into her washing machine. It was the only thing. And it was locked, so I couldn't get into the washer. I couldn't turn it off and open up the door. Nothing. All I could do is just wait, right? And I waited there for 40 minutes, not even sure if my keys were in there. And then about 5 minutes before the washing machine turned off, I could see my keys, and I went, "Oh my goodness, okay." And that took a little bit of relief off of my chest that my keys were in there. But I said, Cindy, that's what you get. Like, you could have just said thank you when she put your clothes in the dryer. You could have just said thank you. But the idea is we're not supposed to be touching each other's clothing. We're supposed to wait unless somebody's left their clothes in the washing machine in the dryer for like an hour and people need to use. There's lots of washers and dryers. And there were lots of washers and dryers, but she wanted my specific washer. But that's no excuse. I just said, don't touch people's clothes. I said, somebody's going to get really, really mad with you because I was mad, right? I don't like my stuff touched. I'm very possessive over my things because I've had many pieces of clothing stolen, and I had my spring jacket in there and some nice clothes in there, and and there's other stories that go along with that, but I was so happy that machine turned off. I grabbed my keys because I could see that they were right there. I shut the door on that. And by the time I shut the door on that, my other clothes that I had put in the dryer were dry, right? And so I ran upstairs, grabbed my laundry basket, and ran downstairs, grabbed all my dry clothing. I can't let them go wrinkly. So I came upstairs and I'm just like, it's all good, Cindy. Everything's okay. You got your keys back, right? No harm done. And there's my breakfast sitting on the kitchen counter, totally cold. My eggs, everything is just cold. My toast is rock hard, and I made myself like a little gourmet breakfast to start my day off good. And now I've got to fold my clothes, otherwise they're going to go wrinkly, right? So I have to do that. And then I had to take everything off of my plate because it was just all nice. Some of the stuff was still in the frying pans, right? But I had turned the stove. Thank goodness I turned the oven and the stove. Can you imagine if I had locked my keys in that washing machine and I right, because I was just running down for a moment just to right, just to switch my clothes into the dryer and if I hadn't turned everything off, oh my goodness, I could have started a fire in my apartment and I would have had no way of coming back into my apartment. So I folded my clothes. I kind of owned my way out of that moment. But I said to myself, right, that's what you get when you're not positive. These are the hiccups, when you always thinking about your bad health or what's going to go wrong next. That's what you're going to get, right? That's what you're going to get. And because I huffed and puffed about my keys being in that washing machine, I could have whistled while I work. I could have sang in the rain, danced in the rain, right? It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. I could have said, oh, thank you very much, and just headed back upstairs, right? But no. Right? So there was a lesson in that for me. And I think there's a lesson in that for everybody, because I think, a great part of each one of us when we struggle, when we have those problems, when we're not feeling good, right? Whether it's emotionally, physically, mentally, a big part of that is because we're dwelling on it. You guys hear me say all the time, what you think about is realized, right? And that thing that I did with all that woman and the washing machine and everything, I just like, oh, right? That's what you get, Cindy, right? And I know better, right? I do know better. It's hard to trigger me that way. And I always stop now and I take note when I do something like that. Right. And so, anyway, I went and I just put everything into the microwave and I heated everything up and clothes are put away, laundry is done, I washed the dishes, right? Right? It was still a really nice breakfast. And actually, it was a very nice breakfast because normally when I make my potato cakes, I don't use green onions. I use just chopped white onions in it. And they were absolutely amazing with the green onions, right? So I really, really did enjoy my breakfast today. But I did take note of that it, right? We have to, right? We just have to kind of ride those waves and we have to understand nobody is perfect. Now, I wasn't super mean, right? I didn't say, I'm angry with you, you stupid. Rah, 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 rah. I didn't do any of that. But I just said, don't touch other people's laundry. It says somebody's going to get really angry with you. Right. And then she just kind of tiptoed around me as she was finishing up what she was doing. And I was upset because I didn't want to get on the elevator with her. Right. If everything had been okay after that, I wouldn't have thought twice about getting on the elevator with her. But I didn't want to get on the elevator with her because I was all kind of wiry and stuff over it. But it could have ended up being a different story. But I think in that course correction, because just standing there, in the laundry room. I had a really, really nice conversation with the gentleman, and he was giving me suggestions. He says, I'll watch your the washer for you, and I says, no, but if I miss it, and right, and she gives her laundry to whoever's laundry that she's doing, and even though I knew that she would probably have to dry it too, I was nervous about leaving my keys in there. that somebody might have access to my keys, and also for the fact that I wasn't quite sure whether or not my keys really were in the washer. They were in the washing machine. I kind of thought that's probably what I had done when I bent down and I grabbed my. But that was a lesson for me, right? And I wish my sister could do the same for herself. But it's just like when you're coming up for that breather and you're going to go, okay, it's over. And then all you get is a gulp of air, and then you're just going right back down into the same thing or something different or even possibly something worse. And so it's important for us to treat ourselves well when things aren't going well, right? That we have to recognize that nobody is perfect. And I didn't crank at this woman, and this woman probably will think twice again. um, think twice again before she touches somebody's laundry, at least for the little while. But I did bump into the cleaning lady. She cleans the elevators and the lobby and stuff in the building, and she says, "Cindy, I have the master key. If you want me to let you into your apartment, right?" And I says, "No, I gotta stay with my laundry. I can't take the chance of losing my keys." She says, "Well, if it makes you feel any better," she says, "that lady you're talking about," and I didn't say who the lady was, but she knew exactly who I was talking about, right? She knew exactly who I was talking about. She says, "If it makes you feel any better," because they lock the laundry room up at 9 o'clock at night, because otherwise the homeless people will come into the building and they'll do their laundry and they'll break into the vending machines and stuff downstairs. So they have to lock up those laundry rooms in the community center and stuff. And so she says, well, she got locked in the laundry room one night. She says, "I went down there to lock the doors, and I looked in. I asked if anybody was in there because she saw that one of the dryers was on, and this woman had hidden behind the pot machine because they watched on the cameras because she didn't want to get in trouble for locking somebody in the laundry room. But she could see that the woman purposely hid behind the pot machine because she thought she could open up the door from the inside and she wanted to finish doing up these laundries, right? So she says, and I went, "Oh my goodness, she must have been pretty upset by that, right?" And I didn't laugh. I don't think I even smiled about that because I can imagine, if I had gotten locked in the in the laundry room and had to spend hours in there, right? Nobody coming down to save me because everybody knows the laundry room is locked at 9 o'clock. But it was a lesson, and I have to remind myself, and I need these lessons once in a while. And thank goodness it could have been a worse lesson. It could have been a lesson like my sister got today, and having to go down to the hospital to get some antibiotics just to find out that, right, that it could be turning onto something even worse because she had crushed her foot, right? So in crushing her foot, she probably made those bones like sawdust, which means she's going to have to get pins or rods put into her foot, right? So it's going to end up being a worse ordeal than what it should have been. And on top of that, she did this 2 weeks ago. So she went 2 weeks with a broken foot, and she just was stubborn because she's had enough of doctors, right? She's had enough of doctors. It's kind of, I don't know, right? I have to think of what I would do if I was in that position because I know I can be pretty stubborn too. I haven't been to a doctor in, I have to be honest in that. I haven't been to a doctor in a few years. when I got into that accident on the bus when the bus driver slammed on his brakes and I went flying. And so, in order to get documentation, because I wanted to sue the city, because, I take the bus, that bus driver is responsible for my safety. And not only that, I was okay, right? But they had broken my glasses. This is my third pair of glasses in 3 years, you guys. The last pair I broke, right? I ruined the reflective coating on them after only having them for a year. But the year before that, I had to buy another pair of glasses because I got thrown when the bus driver braked his bus. And then I went flying and I ended up bruised up and I had to go for x-rays because my hand was all swollen too. But that was the last time that I had gone to a doctor. Thank goodness I have health insurance here in Canada, unlike what's going on in the States, right? But I just thought I would just tell that story just in kind of hindsight for, people to keep it in mind that when we lose our tempers, I don't know if I lost my temper, right? I felt like I lost my temper, but I don't think I did. I think what do you call that? I over, I overemphasize my upsetness because that upsetness was probably more on the inside than what had shown on the outside, right? But yeah, just to remind me those little situations where I feel that I'm right, I'm going off, that I have to take into consideration the person in front of me, the situation that I'm in, and also, is it a big deal? Really, is it a big deal? Right? In the moment, it felt like it was a big deal. I thought it through. I did exactly what I should have done in the end. I don't think there was anything else that I could have done. Right? Like I said, the cleaning lady might have let me into my apartment, but what if I wasn't there the minute she took them out? She saw those keys and she decided to drop them into the box in the office downstairs. And if that was the case, right? Then I would have found the cleaning lady and she would have let me into my apartment, but I would have been really nervous about leaving my apartment for any reason at all unlocked, right? Because I wouldn't have gotten my keys back until tomorrow, later tomorrow afternoon, right? Because the office manager is taking care of two buildings right now. So she takes care of the other building in the morning over at the other place, and then she comes here in the afternoon and she takes care of business in this building in the afternoon. So yeah, I just wanted to tell. It was, in the end, I laughed at myself. It was funny. And I did say some gratefuls because it could have been I haven't checked the key fob to make sure because that's kind of an electrical component, isn't it? So I didn't go downstairs and check to make sure that it worked because it did go through the washing machine and got wet and stuff. But those things are sealed up pretty good. But that doesn't mean that I didn't crack it at some point or anything. So tomorrow I have to make sure when I go out that I check the key fob. But then again, I'm going to say grateful because I had my key fob replaced because I lost my key fob, and and about 6 months after I lost it, I found it after I got it replaced. So all I have to do is take my old key fob and ask them to activate it, and I won't have to pay to get a new key fob. I think they're like $30 or something, but $30 is $30, isn't it? Yeah, so yeah, just to send some gratefuls out there in that anyway. Oh, lots of rain and cool temperatures. Yeah, it was cool. It's been cool here the past couple of days. I just managed to go out for a walk, Owen, yesterday, and it was really it was really kind of cold, but I wore not a winter scarf, but I wore like a wrap scarf around my spring jacket, and it was good enough. And when I go for my walks, I build up a little bit of steam once I get moving, right? And it was really really nice to get out, and it's one of my favorite little grocery stores that I go to. It gives me a chance to stop off at one of the thrift stores and see if there's any scores that I can find that I can sell, and I didn't find anything, but I managed to go to the grocery store, and on top of that, I did really really good with my money, right? And I didn't buy anything that was frivolous and not good for me, right? Meaning my Nanaimo bar, because they have the best Nanaimo bars in the whole city. And I usually, when I go to that grocery store, I like to buy the Nanaimo bars there. And I didn't buy any Nanaimo bars. I didn't buy any sweets or anything like that, right? So, so yeah. So I did good yesterday, and I enjoyed my walk because I get to go walk over the river, walk over the bridge, and look at the geese. I always stop on the bridge and look at the water, and the water's moving really, really, really fast. But I can now see the deck. There's a deck under the bridge, and lots of people go there for fishing in the summertime. And you couldn't see it last week because it was all covered with water. It's like a great big cement deck, and now you can see it, but there's like this much mud. So I guess somebody will have to come in and scoop up all that sediment that kind of settled on the deck, because nobody can fish or sit out there. Lots of people just like to take their camping chairs in the evening and set it up there and just watch people fish or just watch the river go by, right? But yeah, it was nice to get out. Oh, and also I found a really neat pairing, two ducks, and they were a pair. They were a couple because you can always tell with the geese and the ducks, because one will eat and the other one will stand guard with their mate. And it was a regular duck, like a brown duck, and a mallard. It was and they were a pair. They were a couple. I didn't know ducks got together with different ducks like that. And I thought that was so neat to see that, right? I don't see the mallard ducks very often unless I go up to the zoo. I don't see the mallard ducks, but the regular ducks are always swimming in the river and stuff. But yeah, to see the pairing of the mallard duck and the regular duck, I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah. And I made a mental note because I used all my bird seed the other day. I walked to the little library to see if there was any. Well, I actually took my bike. I went for a bike ride, but then I stopped off at the little library because it's by the river. And I usually walk down to the river and sit at the river. Well, I don't sit because there's nowhere to sit right now because everything is just mud because it floods up the banks and stuff. But I went and I took a look at the books and stuff at the little library there, and I don't know what I was saying about the the ducks and going for my ride. But yeah, it was really nice going for a bike ride the other day too. So I am managing to get out now that it's spring and summer. It's important for me to try to get out. I think every day I'm going to make it part of my routine to go for a walk every single day. Normally, I look at the weather, like today it wasn't warm out, and because I was having those issues with the washer and dryer, my neighbor upstairs and her doing laundry for other people, and it irked me. And right, well, what irked me is I could get into my apartment so I could have my beautiful breakfast, but it ended up being a beautiful breakfast anyway. I just had to work for it, right? But yeah, it's just to remember the attitude. And also to remember, just like my sister, like she can't go for bike rides. She can't even go for a walk. Like, right? Who am I to be grumbling about not being able to do those things? But because I am capable, right? And because I do get a lot of my, right? We were talking about getting something for nothing. Like I get so much from being out in Mother Nature. It just settles my system down so much just to be outdoors, even just to sit here. Like today, I opened up my living room window and the breeze came in, and it was just beautiful, right? It was just beautiful to have that air in my face. Yeah. Um, Tammy says we got a hailstorm and thunderstorm with high winds yesterday here in Michigan. Uh, that is really kind of right. We are getting so much. Oh, Tammy heard him. Just going to stop here 1 second. We're going to send some good cheer for those of you who don't know. I live behind a fire station, so I get these paramedics and these fire trucks that go by my place. I think that's the first one. No, the second one. I think that I heard today. The other day, though, you guys, oh my goodness, and I found out what happened with the lady too. But remember what I said the other day? I was looking out the window, and all the firemen, they were here for like a couple of hours, they were here. And then at the end, they all came out, and then they stripped their clothes and their boots and everything, and they bagged everything. So I was kind of nervous, like, why are they bagging all their gear, right? Like for germs and stuff like that. What I hope there's nothing going on in the building because I was feeling all stuffy and I was sneezing all day and stuff. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, especially it made me a little bit nervous because what's going on that cruise ship, right? They're bringing everybody to Vancouver, I think, and gonna have them set up in a hotel because, well, maybe not right in Vancouver, but somewheres in BC. They're going to set them up in hotels because they've got to stay in these hotels for like 6 weeks to make sure, quarantine them just to make sure that nobody gets sick. 3 people passed away, and 5 people are sick with this flu. I can't remember the name of the flu, but it hit a cruise ship, I think, coming out of Africa. Everybody was heading home from their trip and stuff, and yeah, people got sick. And then after I watched that broadcast, I went in and I did a little bit of googling on different viruses and different species of animals that can pass these illnesses onto humans. I don't know why we don't get these viruses and these flus more often than we do because it's quite common in some countries. Like people really do struggle and fight for their lives because it's so prevalent, right? And yeah, kind of makes it so I don't want to throw all my face masks away. I don't know if you guys kept your face masks. I know probably what you think about is realized, right? But I kept quite a few of my face masks. I put them away. So if something should happen, at the very least, that I have access to my face mask. And for the fact that I spend a lot of time on my own. I meet people when I am out and about. But if something like that should ever happen, I definitely won't be out and about, right? I will be making rice soup for as long as it takes me or it takes the world to overcome what they got to overcome. And if it gets really bad, then I just plop my survival bucket on my granny wagon, on my granny wagon, on my, I have a dolly. I'll drop it on my dolly and off I go, and I'll just get on the Trans Canada Highway, and I'll just keep walking, right? And I'll have everything that I need, including slingshots where I can. I don't know if I can take down deers. I thought that maybe when I go to these thrift stores, when I'm looking for stock to resell, that I should be keeping my eyes open for marbles, because I would think that marbles would be a good way to use for my slingshots as ammo, right? Especially to take out small animals like rabbits. Yeah, it's going to be tough if that should ever have to happen, right? I don't do wild meat. Never, never, ever. I was telling the story the other day on my What's My Good Cheer on my podcast, that right? That I went over for dinner at one of my friends' house, and I only get to see her every once in a while, but her whole family makes a big deal of it when I come over. And her husband was outside, it was winter time, and he was barbecuing and everything, and they brought in and they made the most beautiful burgers for us, and they were absolutely delicious. I got halfway through my burger, and then they told me that they bought half a cow. And I went, oh my goodness, if it's not wrapped in grocery cellophane, I can't touch it. Right. And I didn't want to disrespect them or anything. But at the same time, I had to be true to myself and just be honest, because I couldn't just leave half a burger on my plate, because they would think that I absolutely hated it. And it had nothing to do with the taste, because it tasted absolutely amazing. It was just a fact that it reminded me that it was something that was actually alive. And even if it wasn't wild meat, right, I try not to look at the meat section as animals, right? I try really hard to kind of blank that out of my brain. So if anything should ever happen to the world, like even in my neighborhood, there are so many rabbits, right? So many rabbits. They're always right, and squirrels, and yeah. But they were saying when I was looking at these catastrophes that cause havoc in the world, and they make species disappear, they said that always the birds survive. It's because they can get above everything, because they can fly over mountains and over the ocean, and they can actually get away from whatever is going on, right? That the birds are the last dinosaurs in the world, which I thought was weird, because are strange, because I thought it would have been some of those ocean animals that would have been the most prehistoric animals in the world. But in actuality, it is the birds, right? The birds, because even during the extinctions, and those many, I think there were six different extinction moments that happened in the course of history, and they even affected the ocean, right? They even affected the ocean. Okay, let me come down in the comments here. But yeah, pretty cool here this week. But I'm looking at the temperatures for next week, and right, I'm not going to say spring is here, because we're already in May. Summer starts in June. So I'm going to just say we're moving. We didn't get a spring this year. We're just moving straight into from winter to summer. It's happened before. Happens quite often actually here in this province. Um, oh, you finished your caregiving, Tammy. Oh, so you get some, or you just finished for the night, or you're finished for the holiday. Your friend is home now from her trip. Is that what you're saying? Andrew says the temperatures have been fluctuating a lot around here. Air conditioning on, then later the frost warmings. Yeah, I know my air conditioner has been off and on too. Tomorrow it's supposed to get nice and warm. It's supposed to get to almost 20 tomorrow, which is room temperature. So it should be pretty nice tomorrow. but then it's going to cool off a little bit, not much, but then slowly warming up during the course of the week. I only look a week ahead. You can't trust the Weather Channel, they never get it right, let alone day to day, hour to hour. It's hard for them to get it right. Um, Rain every other. Do you guys have the buds on the trees? The buds came out on the trees for us in the beginning of the week, last week. I noticed the buds were on the trees. They're not blooming yet, and I haven't checked the little seedling trees that they planted across the street to see if they got any buds. I'm assuming that they did get some buds, but I haven't checked yet whether or not they had. Um, and I may walk by them tomorrow because I've got some books for the little library that I want to drop off, and I have to cross the road to uh, to drop them off. Um, but yeah, it was really nice. Like, we're gonna have leaves on the trees. It won't take more. Once they come out, it's only a week or two, right? They might not be totally full and bushy, but the leaves will be out, right? And then once the leaves are out, then we get the little green worms. What are the little green worms called? I can't remember what the little green worms are. With the little strings of web that they hang from the trees, and then we end up getting them in our hair and on our clothes and stuff. And those usually stick around for about a week, and then they go away. Well, they don't go away. I think they turn into moths or something. And then after that, we get the wall flies, the flies that hang out on the walls. Then we get those for, and they just cover buildings. They're just so bad. They cover entire buildings, and then those last for about a week too, and then those are gone. And then all we're dealing with for a couple of months after that is the ticks. And I've always avoided, going out in the field in April and May. March is still pretty cold, and most of the time there's still a little bit of snow on the ground, so the ticks aren't really out there. So I don't mind going out in the fields in March. But April and May, I never ever went out in the fields, right? And then come June, it's mosquito season. But mosquitoes have not been really a problem either, not since early 19 well 2019, 2020, when all the that COVID hit, that, right, they didn't get a lot of munchies and stuff, I guess, that ever since then they haven't been really prevalent in in uh, in the aspect of wanting to be around us at the very least. I don't even know if they really have been around. And when I do go out on the road, I'm usually out in the late summer and the early fall, and by then the dragonflies have taken care of the mosquitoes. I love the dragonflies. I don't know if anybody else out there loves dragonflies. I love dragonflies. Uh, Owen, you may have heard more about this on the East Coast. I saw an item on Facebook that things are go for the sinking of the SS United States soon. So, was that an important ship, Andrew? Was that an important ship? Uh, I know that lots of times they sink those ships now to make coral reefs, right? That they make sure that they drain the tanks and everything. Then they purposely, I guess, if they do ship them, sink them, that they will be used for the animals in the ocean, right? Well, they're not animals, are they? What are they're called? I don't know. Sea creatures. Sea creatures. Um, Come down here a little bit. if my memory was right, there was a TV movie called Killer on Board. I think there was a plague virus on a cruise ship. This is going way back in the 70s. I don't remember ever seeing that movie, but I know my entire life that disaster movies were right. I don't know if it was my own fear or my own want of being prepared if something ever happened. I think my dad got us hooked on um, um, these movies, disaster movies. I remember the first disaster movie I ever saw was Towering Inferno, and then it was Earthquake. Oh, that was awful because I had to leave the building. I had to get my dad to take me out of the building because the Dolby sound had just come out and the whole building felt like it was shaking. It scared me. I think I was about 12 years old when that movie Earthquake came out. But nothing scared me more than that movie Jaws. Oh my goodness. I used to swim all the way out to the barges. We were living in Vancouver at the time. I used to go down to Stanley Park. I was an amazing swimmer as a little kid, right? And I'd swim all the way out to the barges. And I did it purposely because I know the speedboats and the little houseboats and stuff. They would come by thinking that I was drowning, and I would get a free ride back to shore. And it was always fun and excited because at that time I loved boats. My dad was a commercial fisherman. He always had his own boats and we were always going boating. He'd wake us up and take us out to Horseshoe Bay. That's where they made that television series. I don't know if the people in the States remember this series. It was called The Beachcombers. It was a Canadian made television series about scavenging the beaches and stuff. And they made that series in Horseshoe Bay. And my that was one of my dad's favorite places to go fishing when he wasn't commercial fishing. He just rent little rowboats or little speedboats or something, and he'd take us out. And we would go fishing, wake us up at 3 o'clock in the morning so we could still get out to the lake by the time it was still darker. The light was still getting out. But I used to love the water, right? But after I saw that movie Jaws, that was it. I wouldn't go into the ocean further than up to my knee, right? I didn't even go on my dad's boat again after I saw that movie Jaws. It really affected me. Like I said, I was a pretty sensitive kid back then. Everything freaked me out. But yeah, that that kind of ruined it for me when it came to being in the ocean. I have no problems being in the lake, but I did hear that in Lake Superior that there are uh, hammerhead sharks, hammer tiger sharks, hammerhead sharks, bull sharks in the Lake Superior, right? They're not supposed to be there, and yet they've got video of them and they're doing quite well. But then again, Lake Superior is so big, it's like an ocean itself, isn't it? But yeah, so I'm not quite sure if I would go swimming in Lake Superior, right? I'm not afraid of animals, right on the norm. I'm not a big fan of snakes, but spiders don't, any kind of insects don't bother me at all. But I'm not a big fan of snakes, and I'm quite afraid of sharks. I'm not even afraid of bears. Maybe mountain lions, because when I walk on the trails, I always make sure that I wear a toque, even if it's summer, because you need a little bit of cush because if a cougar is tracking you, you won't know it until it's clinging to the back of your neck because it'll always go for the back of your neck. The and Yeah, they actually found two, no, three, a mother and two cubs, mountain lions. I think in Minnesota, yeah, Minnesota, in Minnesota, and they usually don't go that far south. The mountain lions, like they haven't been seen in that area in decades and decades, but they got footage on trail cam of the mountain lions. So they were pretty excited about that. But I'm thinking, yeah, Minnesota is pretty close to Manitoba. That doesn't make me feel any better. uh, Cindy, I remember once going past a log cabin in the country. There was a children's swing set by the house, and a dead deer was hanging there, maybe to be drained of blood. A lot of poverty. Yeah, you know, and people may have even still lived there, Andrew, in that log cabin. You don't know, but you are right. Maybe they were draining the deer. Um, and to hang the deer, it would make sense, right? And you wouldn't want to bring it really close to the house because the animals would sniff that out pretty fast. But yet at the same time, out in the backyard, a little further away from where the kids play, maybe, only so that you could keep an eye on that. But a deer would go a long way, wouldn't it? My husband, he would go hunting, and we would take the deer and we'd take it to a butcher. And there was a butcher, they're gone now, but they were really popular, and people would take their deer to them, and this butcher would make sausages and hamburgers and cut them into roasts and wrap them in paper and stuff, label them. And that's what they did. And I think my husband got 2 deer one year, and he got it butchered and wrapped, and he brought it home. And I fed my husband for, oh my goodness, 6 months every day with that meat. And that came in quite handy. I never ate it. Like I said, I don't eat wild meat. But my husband was a very much a meat eater. But the idea is, though, when you eat deer meat, you have to add quite a bit of oil when you're cooking uh, the wild meat because it's so dry. There's no fat at all in the wild meat, right? Unless you're going to eat a buffalo, and buffalo is coming back, you guys. Like they were totally wiped, and all the buffalo are coming from one buffalo and its mother, or maybe it was an auntie, some other relative, and they were able to breed the buffalo. And once they got 6 buffalo, they took half those 6 buffalo and they gave them to Alberta, and Alberta let those buffalo go. And now they're shipping buffalo into the States. The States are replenishing the buffalo, and it was very easily that the buffalo could have been wiped out forever. It was just a rancher who came across the baby buffalo. Oh, I think he had a buffalo, a full grown buffalo, but it was the only buffalo left. And then he found a baby buffalo when he was out in the fields, and he brought the baby buffalo back, and that's how the herd got built up. Now buffalo are almost back, right? They're almost back. There are tons of buffalo in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta, right? So and like I said, Yellowstone Park, I heard, have got buffalo now. That the actually it's really good for the system because the wolves and the coyotes are back now too. Yeah. So it's really good for the ecosystem that, some of these animals got saved. I'm not quite sure how I feel about rescuing animals that are already extinct, because they are bringing some of these animals back by cloning them with animals that are similar to them, right? Because I heard the Thylacine, which is the Tasmanian devil, that they're breeding them with uh, hyenas, and they're trying to bring them back. The Chinese are trying to bring back the mammoths. They've been working on that. They found a variation of the dodo bird, so they have decided that they're going to try and bring the dodo bird back because there is it's not the dodo bird that went extinct, but it's another bird from the same family that they found. I think they found it in Antarctica, so they're going to try and bring those back. They brought back some wolves. I can't remember the name. Bear wolves. They brought back bear wolves. I think they did that last year, and they were extinct, right? And they're getting a lot of these animals that are extinct because they were hunted for sport, right? And they were taxidermied, but they can still get DNA from the teeth of these stuffed extinct animals. And so that's what they're doing, and that's what they're working on. But I also watched a documentary about a month ago, and the gentleman is reputable because this is his industry that he works in. He was saying that it's not working. Cloning is not working because they've been cloning the same mouse for over 25 years now, and now they can't keep it. And it was working really, really well. But they say over the course of time, the DNA breaks down, genes break down, and now they can't keep any of the babies alive, right? So they get born and they're either born dead or they pass away right away. So cloning doesn't work. And so it made me think about, the Habsburgs, right? And what about the Rothschilds? Like they were two famous dynasties, and they were all married to uncles and first cousins and stuff, and there were a lot of genetic issues, right, in these families. Now the family, the Rothschilds, are the inbredness has dissipated because they've introduced new blood, new genes into that pool. But the Habsburgs, right? They're all gone, right? And then it made me think of those last six. There were six mammoths on an island off of Siberia. I think it was Siberia, or no, maybe not Siberia. I think it was close to Great Britain, and they got trapped on an island, and then everything flooded, and there was no way for them to get back onto the mainland, and they turned eight breeding adult mammoths into over 200 mammoths at any given time, and those mammoths lasted for 4,000 years, another 4,000 years, and they were the last mammoths to be on this earth. They died only 6,000 years ago, right? They're the last of the mammoths, but these mammoths, they lasted a lot longer. But was it because they were almost cloned, because they were all mating with each other, right? Like different, from the same families, different herds, but the same blood. So eventually they died out, right? Yeah. Gives you food for thought in that. So cloning does not work, and they've proven that already. So cloning might get us by for a little while, but you need that diversity, right? You need the diversity. Otherwise, we're all going to go extinct, right? And now they're thinking, is that what happened to the Neanderthals? Because when the humans came, right? Because the Neanderthals were cannibals, right? They ate their own. That humans would have been mortified by that, because the humans, the Homo sapiens, us, we didn't do that, right? For the most part, we didn't do that, but they would have looked at that as a threat that they might get hunted and eaten. So they isolated the Neanderthals, and because the Neanderthals were isolated, they interbred too, right? So now they're saying that possibly that the Neanderthals went extinct because of that gene pool was just too weak for them to survive, right? And it wasn't because Homo sapiens came in with their swords and their slingshots and took them out. It wasn't the case at all. It was the fact that they were so isolated that they interbred, and over the course of how many thousands of years, possibly, that they just went extinct naturally, that it was meant to be because they were just all part of the same gene pool, right? And it makes us think for ourselves right now that it's actually probably a good thing, because as of the 50s and 60s, mankind's become a whole lot more tolerant, right? And even accepting and welcoming to different diversities in marrying and having babies. So that's extended the life expectancy of mankind too, because that diversity has been added, has been mixed with, right? Because if we had all just stayed in our same group, because we all, right, every human being on this earth comes from one woman, right? Because that mitochondria just got passed down, right? Or was that the one woman with blue eyes? That's how blue eyes got here, right? My eyes are blue. I don't know who else out there has got blue eyes. My eyes are more gray than they are like bright blue or anything. They're kind of like a gray blue, but blue eyes only. Um, what's the percentage? 20%? 20% have blue eyes. And it's most of the Scandinavian countries, right? Where the blue eyes come from. They say it came from the Eastern Europeans. And I think it's because of the ice age that we were in the caves, right? That we didn't need to have that darkness in our eyes to protect our skin from those cancerous rays of the sun, that our eyes went that color because of the lack of light, because we were living in the caves, right? We were living in the darkness because of the ice age. There was no sun, and we just adapted that way, right? I don't know. Interesting things to talk. I love history, you guys. I love going in and listening to these brainiacs and right hearing things, because I think a lot of the answers in our future actually do come from our past, right? Do come from our past, and we learn from our mistakes. And mistakes always come from the past. Always, right? Mistakes always. We can make mistakes now, and they might not manifest to the future, but that's only because we don't know we made a mistake in the moment. So it's still a failure from the past. Yeah. But yeah, that's interesting about the deer hanging from the, but right, it's a matter, right? That's adaptability. That's finding a way. That's making it uh making it work. That's keeping a roof over your kids' head, right? Making sure that the next generation, no matter what, they're going to survive. Now maybe not perfectly, but that resilience, that's something I would love to have on my team. Somebody that knows, right, how to go out there and hunt animals, and knows that a deer does have to be bled before you eat it, right? Yeah. Among the Amish, there have been a lot of inbreeding, resulting in people with Down syndrome and other developmental disabilities. Yeah, that's true too. I really appreciate the Amish and the Hutterites, even the Mennonites too, because they are so much into community, and not just their community, but taking care of people in other communities that surround them. Like they have a really great sets of values, right? Even in this communal living and stuff. I think, if any human was going to survive, it would be the Hamish and the Hutterites and the Mennonites. It's because they have those skills. Those children are brought up learning how to cook, learning how to sew, learning how to work farm fields, and learning how to do gardens, and learning how to fix farm equipment, and how to build houses, not just Amish furniture, right, which is highly sought after. But these skills are not being taught outside of these type of communities anymore. You know, my mother taught me how to cook, right? Whenever we did something together, it was usually she was showing me how to cook, right? And my mother was a very good cook, and we did come from one of those families, those resilient families that knew how to get things done. My dad knew how to fish. Us kids knew how to dress up cute and go to the park and sell dandelions and Kool-Aid without sugar to the tourists and stuff. Like we were very resourceful this way. But my mother, she was so creative when it came to feeding her family, especially when there was no money to be had. In my family, there were lots of moments where there was no money and no end in sight as to when that money was going to reappear. All we had to do was just survive whatever we had to survive until a windfall came in and things went back to normal. But my mother had 101 recipes for rice, her bread pudding. My dad always, right? He was a meat and potatoes kind of guy. And even if we were poor, we would manage somehow to have meat and potatoes. At the very least, he would get his meat and potatoes. But as kids, we're always happy with craft dinner and spaghetti and stuff. My dad didn't like to eat that way, right? Because he had health issues and he wanted to eat healthy for his well-being. But being poor, coming from a poor family, destitute sometimes, that my mother was very creative in making sure that there were meals. Like she'd bake her own bread, right? Rice pudding for dessert, bread pudding for dessert, cinnamon buns, right? Make little sweets out of nothing. And she was very creative, and she always made sure, that's what I could say about my mother. She always made sure that there was a meal every day. I don't think, even when we were at our lowest of the lows, and there were a lot of those days, that my mother, right, never failed to make sure that there was some kind of meal on the table for her family. And that's the truth. I give my mother that, right? I give my mother. She might not have been a very affectionate woman, right? But she made sure that we didn't go without, right? For sure. Um, but yeah, it is a problem, right? The genes do get broken down, and that is considered like cloning, isn't it? And we know now that it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Um, where my late mother and brother lives in Tawas City, Michigan, up north. They had a mother and her cubs living down on their street next to the Methodist church. I tell people that the that story's over. I hope you finished it, Tammy. Oh, the bears are Christian. Aw. I like that. I like that, Tammy. Tammy has blue eyes too. Oh my goodness. Yeah, the blue eyes come from 8,000 years ago, Tammy. So that's to say, somewheres in your bloodline has survived on this planet for at least 8,000 years. Isn't that incredible? Right? Brown eyes are the most common. The hazel eyes are the least common. Green eyes are uncommon too. And black eyes are, there's no that such thing as black eyes. And sometimes people, right, they show people with black eyes, but those will be contact lenses. There is no such thing as black eyes. It's actually, if anything, it's going to be a very, very dark blue or dark brown eye, and it's just the way the light is reflecting off of it. Yeah. I only know that because I saw a documentary on it last week. There are people who shoot a lot of deer here in Michigan and live off of them. Yeah, the deer are a really, really big problem, especially when it comes to things like passing on Lyme disease. Um, but they get overrun. They cause havoc on the ecosystem when they get to be too many deer. They change. Sometimes here in Manitoba, you can shoot one deer. Sometimes you can shoot two deer, but they'll let you know. It all depends. In some areas, you're not allowed to shoot any. Right? It depends on the season. It depends on how they held out during the course of the winter. Right? How many babies were born and stuff. But that will all determine. And plus, how many of those pointy things on their antlers, it counts as that, right? So you have to remember there was a big thing up north here in Manitoba. There was a hunting lodge, and it only goes till hunting season is over up in that area, so late fall. But over the course of the winter, the lake is used for commercial fishing, and sometimes the people will come in and check on the lodge to make sure that it's okay, it's locked up good, that the bears didn't get in because they keep the pantries there and everything, right? And they went there, and somebody used the property to butcher deer, and you're not allowed to kill the mama deers, and they usually have their babies and they're pregnant during the course of the winter. And so there were like little baby deers dead and frozen in the snow. It was a big thing here in Canada. That was big, big, big news, especially up north, because the different tribes up there, the indigenous, who are the stewards of that land, they take it very personally, and it's tied into their spirituality about the animals and stuff too. So it wasn't just the fact that they broke the law and butchered all those deer out of season. It wasn't even hunting season. They just went up and they did it, right? And they didn't even clean up the mess. They didn't care that these does were pregnant or anything. They did it. They did it anyway, and it was big news. I don't know if they. I think they did catch the people who did it, but I haven't heard anything. I should Google it and see if there was anything that came out of that, right? Um, but yeah, that was pretty. that was pretty bad because it's monitored, and like I said, they let the public know when they can hunt, whether the season's going to be long or short, and how many they're allowed to take down. They get tags. You buy your tags before you go hunting, right? Sometimes you can get one tag, sometimes you can get two. Sometimes you take Grandma Jane with you just so you could use her tag, right? Yeah. I love the Amish and the Mennonites too. They have those daily life skills and live off land. We have a lot of Amish uh, people in Michigan. My mother, when she was alive, had the Amish build her a beautiful shed. Yeah, here we have the Hutterites, and they were persecuted in I think it was in the Slavic countries, right? They were persecuted, and they were offered land here, and part of their deal was that they didn't have to go to war if they brought their large congregations and built communities here in Manitoba. So we brought in a lot of colonies, and they are, I love them. There's especially the men. Men are so funny. It's dry humor. The humor's pretty dry, but they are super funny. The women are super generous. Like they were always bringing me in little gifts, knitting me slippers, and bringing in baking and stuff. I used to work in a thrift store, and we all know they like a good deal, right? And yeah, I really did get to know them very, very well. Not only then, but when I get my stuck when I was urban exploring, I get stuck in ditches all the time, and they would always come out and help me out of the ditches, right? I remember even one time that I drove into a colony off of a main road because the road looked new. It didn't even cross my mind that it was a colony. And I drove in, and I was driving around in there for over an hour. I remember driving by a school, like a schoolhouse, like a big regular schoolhouse, right? And all the kids were playing outside. But I guess one of the men had seen me driving around and knew that I was lost. So he came up in front of my vehicle, and so I just followed him to the gate. He just got me out. It took quite a while to get to the gate too, but he led me to the gate so I could get out because he knew I was lost. But they helped me out so much. But yeah, they didn't have to go to war. But the thing is, when the war did start, the First World War and the Second World War, they didn't have to go to war, but they stayed behind and they took care of the families whose husbands did go to war. They did different charity drives. They kept people fed. They worked like part of the they weren't part of the Red Cross, but they acted like a Red Cross, so they would give medical assistance and stuff. And they made sure that everybody who was at home, like meaning regular citizens that were left behind, that they were taken care of, and they did a really, really, really good job. They did a really good job, right? And yeah, they're quite prevalent here in Manitoba, but they're just another community, right? Like they're just right. They dress differently, but they don't talk any differently. But they do live differently. Like when they come in on Saturday afternoons when I was working in that little thrift store, they would come on a bus, and like, oh, 20 or 30 of them would just walk into the store and just buy out the store, and they would wheel and deal because they loved a good deal, right? And and uh and in the fall time, oh, they were so amazing. I forgot this. In the fall, they would bring big boxes of tomatoes and cucumbers and pumpkins and melons and potatoes. They would just great big boxes, and we would just leave them in the back room for right? And we would just help ourselves to that. And then after we all helped ourselves to what we wanted, we'd take them up to the front. We would let the customers take what they wanted out of those boxes, right? Very giving people, very giving people, right? But we should all, right, take after these good traits of these people who represent well, right? We don't always do. We always think that we're better or higher up than somebody else. But if you ask me, right, we're not taking lessons from the right people, and that's the truth. Um, we have deer in Bloomington. I've seen deer on the campus of Indiana University, and that's right in the middle of town. Sometimes the deer, they come into the city at nighttime, and you'll find them like they'll sleep all day underneath a tree or in between two houses because they can't walk around because there's just too much traffic, right? So they have to stay until nighttime in order to be able to get out of the city again. And we do have some very, very big provincial, or not provincial parks, but city parks. Like our Assiniboine Park Zoo is super huge, that park. And they have a couple of herd in that park. I used to go up and feed them and stuff all the time. But yeah, it's really oh my goodness, I'm yawning. Yeah, but yeah, they get trapped. They get trapped here in the city too. Um, for deer season in 2025, we had 129 uh, and 520 deer that got shot. Oh, we probably right. We probably at least tripled or quadrupled that number, Tammy, here in Manitoba. Like when it comes to wildlife and hunting and stuff, it's pretty popular here, right? It always has, because it's how we survived here, and we have a lot of wildlife, and it's about controlling the wildlife. They do a really good job in taking care of our ecosystem here, that it's really well balanced. But yeah, I can't imagine. I think we would just the hunters in the city, not even the rest of the province, just the hunters in the city would take out that many deer for sure. But Michigan, yeah, you're pretty rural in Michigan too, aren't you? Mind you, you are close to some really, really big cities. When you look at other cities, Winnipeg is not super huge. It's not like Vancouver and Toronto and New York City and stuff, right? They're not huge like that. In fact, um, in Manitoba, in all of Canada, in actuality, uh, California has more people than Canada has as a whole. Like the whole country of Canada has less people than what California has. That's crazy. That's really crazy. Oh my goodness, we went over tonight already. Uh, oh, good. I said I come down. At least I got the comments in. I remember one of your urban explorations, Cindy, you did talking about the group of people there in Canada near you, Cindy. That group. Oh, the Hutterites. You don't have Hutterites in the States? You don't have Hutterites? Because you mentioned the Amish and you mentioned the Mennonites, but you didn't mention the Hutterites. Yeah, but we do have lots of Hutterites here in Manitoba, but they are really, really nice people. Yeah, really nice people. I mean, I'm not going to say friends because it's not like they would have invited me for dinner or anything because they're a very tight community within themselves. But in our interactions, they always treated me like a friend, right? Almost like family. Actually, I had one lady from one of the colonies. She always wanted to make sure I got my baking. So she wanted to deliver it to my house, and she would always phone me on my days off. Cindy, we're coming into the city, right? Can we drop something off for you? And I just like, oh my goodness, thank you very much, but I'm good, right? Yeah, yeah, sweet. Okay, you guys. I think that's going to be it tonight. Sorry again, we went an extra 15 minutes. I'm going to make myself a cup of coffee and keep it pretty light in my content tonight. Have a sip of my juice. And then we'll call it a night. I will be back tomorrow if any of you want to show up here on What's My Good Cheer. It's my Monday to Friday show. If not, I will be back on Sunday for Chatters Live. And I kept up with the comments tonight, you guys, didn't I? I don't normally do that. I'm usually rushing right at the end, and then I notice what time it is, and I go, oh my goodness. And then I go through the comments really fast, but I kept up with the comments tonight. You guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. Hope it warms up, Owen, right? In New York, that it warms up a little bit. I hope in Michigan that, right? While the rain is kind of nice because the trees do need the rain, so all the leaves and everything turns pretty and stuff. They do need the rain. And I like the thunderstorms. I like the rainy days. Doesn't look like we're going to get much rain in the next week or so, but you never know, right? You just can't trust the weather. It's the one thing that we don't have a true control over yet. Isn't it amazing that we're such smarty pants in this world right now that we got a handle on absolutely everything except for Mother Nature? Yeah, something to think about. Okay, you guys, have a great night. If I don't see you tomorrow, we'll see you next Sunday. Bye. Oh, okay. Bye.